If you're anything like me, just the title screen of Jet Set Radio Future is a near spiritual experience. When the crunchy, staticky, distorted intro to Hideki Naganuma's Concept of Love comes blaring through my speakers and I see those core members of the GGs skating their way through Shibuya Terminal, I am instantly filled with pulsating, vibrant energy that I can only find on the streets of Tokyoto. And when Jet Set Radio Future came out for the original Xbox back in 2002, it felt like the game reached out of digital space and touched my soul. I felt connected to this game in a way that I hadn't to any game before or since, and it isn't hyperbole when I say that it's one of my very favorite games of all time, certainly my favorite non-Nintendo game of all time. But what you might not know is that Jet Set Radio actually has appeared on a Nintendo platform before. And not only that, a sequel to Jet Set Radio Future was once pitched for the Nintendo Wii. And even 20 years on, the game is still inspiring independent developers to try and fill the void that these games left when Sega stopped making them. So it all sort of begs the questions. Why did Nintendo and Jet Set Radio have this missed connection? What would this fabled Wii game have been like? And maybe most importantly, what is Jet Set Radio's future?
What is free good? What is love is free. Love is free. Love is free. Love is free. Ready to kick some ass.
Now, before we get too far into it, hi, I'm Seth. I'm one of the hosts of All In a Nintendo podcast, and I love making video content here for our little YouTube channel. If you'd like to see more video essays like this from me, consider dropping a like on this video and subscribing to us here on YouTube. I love making stuff like this, and it helps us tremendously. But enough about that. If you're a Jet Set Radio fan, you probably already know that the first game was of course released back in the year 2000 for the Sega Dreamcast. It was developed by Smilebit, which itself was made up of former members of the Sega Saturn Panzer Dragoon dev team who were looking to make something new and vibrant and fresh. The team was small, fewer than 25 developers, and the average age of the people who developed the game was reportedly under the age of 25, which will actually end up being an important ingredient to this thing later. And people loved Jet Grind Radio, but with the Dreamcast being discontinued just a few short months after the game's release, it did leave Sega scratching their heads about what to do with this exciting new IP that got great critical reception, but never really got the chance for commercial success. Enter the Xbox.
Take the don'ts. He's coming out again for a new point. Get your bets down, ladies and gentlemen.
An exciting new machine that hit the market in November 2001 that saw a young, scrappy, and hungry Microsoft eager to work with an established and respected publisher like Sega. So on February 22nd in Japan and just a few days later in North America, Jet Set Radio Future was released. And it was phenomenal. It was positioned as a souped-up, bigger and better version of Jet Grind Radio before it, but it was more than that. Everything was improved, refined, given larger scale, and accentuating the unique, majestic energy of the series. And the game ended up becoming somewhat synonymous with the Xbox. It was literally bundled in with the console as a 2-pack with Sega GT 2002. And this game changed everything for me, my friends, and other rebellious teenage Xbox kids around the world. So when did Nintendo enter the picture? Utilizing the engine that they developed for Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 and 4, developer Vicarious Visions was tasked with putting the world of Tokyoto into the palm of Nintendo gamers' hands. Sega was actually really excited by the Game Boy Advance and was keen on putting portable versions of some of their emerging franchises on Nintendo's latest handheld. And how good of a job Vicarious Visions did with it is up for debate, but the door was now open. Sega was down to put old rivalries aside and support Nintendo hardware. And Jet Set Radio for the Game Boy Advance should have just been another notch in a championship belt as Sega entered the Wii generation. Now, not much is known about Jet Set Radio Wii. It's sort of a fabled pitch, forever lost to the sands of time, destined to be written off as hearsay industry legend in, well, video essays like this one. What we do know is that in 2006, a developer called Kuju Entertainment pitched the idea of a Jet Set Radio game for the Nintendo Wii to Sega. Kuju is a very Nintendo-centric developer, best known for making Battalion Wars for the GameCube. And they would transition into the Wii era with games like Geometry Wars Galaxies and Battalion Wars 2. A lot of games with wars in the title. But Kuju wanted to dive into this exciting new Nintendo hardware with a Jet Set Radio game that seemed like the perfect fit for the IP. So they teamed up with concept artist Corey Lewis and they put together a pitch. And unfortunately, Sega turned them down. Now, some of the concept art has since been leaked online, but the details of the pitch itself never left the room, and, well, that's really all there's been to know about Jet Set Radio Wii. At least, until now. You see, Kuju Entertainment has no real online presence in 2022. Their Twitter page hasn't been active in over 3 years, and they were promoting their latest game, Narcos: Rise of the Cartels, for Netflix. And when you hit the link to check out their website for any sort of contact information, well, this happens. I felt like I had hit a dead end in finding out any additional information about the Jet Set Radio Wii pitch. Anybody who would have been in the room where it happened seemed impossible to reach. But then it hit me.
Stop playing with that radio, Lord. I'm trying to get to sleep.
I did some digging and I found Corey Lewis, the concept artist that Kuju hired to work on the pitch. And he's still a really prolific artist today, making pins, artwork, comics, commissions, and even has his own Patreon. And last month, I worked up the courage to send Corey a DM on Twitter. I explained the concept of this video and expressed my interest in any knowledge he might have about the Kuju Jet Set Radio Wii pitch that he worked on. But I did this not knowing if Corey did know anything about the pitch itself. Maybe they just commissioned Corey to do some artwork, and he wasn't privy to any design ideas at all. And even if he were, maybe he wouldn't be allowed to talk to me about them due to NDAs. Or maybe he'd be too busy to help out some random guy on the internet trying to make a video about Jet Set Radio. But to my surprise, Corey responded, and he answered my questions about Jet Set Radio Wii to the best of his ability. Now, unfortunately, there just isn't a whole lot to know about this pitch because, to be completely frank, it didn't get very far before Sega shot it down. But it's cool to have Corey's insight to fill in a couple of the blanks. Corey explained that the folks at Kuju Entertainment approached him essentially out of the blue and commissioned him to work on this pitch, assuming that they were fans of his work in comics. And in fact, Kuju gave Corey creative freedom to come up with some brand new gangs for this pitch. Corey came up with this design for a gang called the Squabblehawks, which he said were inspired by the character of Griffith from the manga and anime series Berserk. And I think this really feeds into the collaborative, creative energy that Jet Set Radio has always had and that Kuju Entertainment was attempting to tap into. Corey told me about how he was working at a retro game store living on the edge of Seattle with an apartment of other comic artists, so the project was definitely injected with some authentic street style. And the one gameplay element that Corey knew Kuju was planning to implement in Jet Set Radio Wii was, of course, motion controls. Taking advantage of the exciting new Wii motion control hardware, you'd be able to shake the Wii remote authentically like a spray can and tag graffiti with natural movements. It would have been pretty cool, and people were already starting to figure out how to make this tech work, like this Wii spray concept that was making the rounds around the same time. But sadly, not unlike the Rokaku group in the game, Sega's corporate anti-graffiti stance put a damper on their support for the series in general. It's not all bad, though. Today, Sega seems happy to let Jet Set Radio have its place in the company's history. They throw fans a bone with things like having Beat playable in Super Monkey Ball Banana Mania, offer us some merch to buy, and seem to look back on the series fondly. Somewhat recently, Sega Sammy illustrated to its investors that it's interested in remastering, remaking, or rebooting some of their inactive IP, including Jet Set Radio, but we haven't seen any evidence of any new Jet Set Radio game in development as of yet. And maybe part of that is due to the development team's feeling that they just can't make the same game they made when they were 25 anymore.
We need some help in our plan.
you at my job.
In a 2020 interview with US Gamer, lead designer Kazuki Hosokawa said, quote, "I've gained enough experience that I can identify what works and how to present things. I can see the path to the end goal, whether I like it or not. If I put it negatively, because of my experience, I can only create games in the smart way. This means that I wouldn't be able to convey that passion in this title that could have only been born through all the struggles I faced. That's why I'm looking forward to a new generation of creators." End quote. When I think about Jet Set Radio's future, I look at the games that it inspired. The indie scene is positively bursting with games that are inspired by this series. Young artists made Jet Set Radio, and their art inspired other young artists to make their art today. And I think that's kind of beautiful. This idea that the art and the message persists. It perseveres in spite of everything working against it, trying to keep its gleaming soul at bay and trying to keep its radio quiet. So as much as I would adore a new Jet Set Radio game from Sega, getting to see a new generation of Rudies hit the streets and tag their own graffiti, so to speak, is almost even better. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you next time.